Welcome to the SaintsCityMe audio love letters to and from the city of New Orleans. I'm Dan, as usual. I'm here with Mike. Been away a little while after we did the episode of Nick Underhill, so I think we've been enjoying the quiet of the dead zone of the NFL season. But we felt there was a good reason to get an episode going today because despite the NFL being dead, we've had college football 25 come out, and what a better opportunity for us to bring on our good friend and host of the gaming podcast, Chocobo Chasers, to talk about the Saints, the city, and college football and gaming. Welcome our good friend G to the SaintsCityMe. G, how you doing?
Hey, man, that was incredible. I'm awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I have obviously been stored away in college football. I've basically played nothing else for the last week and a half. So it's I'd say it's going pretty well.
Me and Mike had a game. He beat me. I sent you the video of me screwing up my walk-in touchdown.
It was a game for the ages. It really was. two really shit Brits playing college football. I mean, it literally had anything, didn't it, Dan? It was a last minute Hail Mary for me to tie it up. I mean, literally last second. I think there were two picks in the red zone. It was a blocked PAT. It had everything, and I'm really shit at these games, but I'm glad to say that I've played two and I've won two. So, hey,
okay,
that's what,
that's what I've got. Batting 1,000 is never anything to scoff at. I will say that this game is hard. So.
Yeah. Not when you're playing Dan.
I had it on settled freshman for you dickhead.
It was all American.
It is. We've never played the game before because we couldn't get it in the UK previously because it was on regional discs, so we never got it. But
oh wow,
it feels like it is like from watching college football, which is why I'm wearing the LSU jersey today. Because college football thing came prepared. It does feel like a real true reflection of the college game when you watch it. But Mike's got a bit closer at home with his Chocobo Chasers t-shirt.
I've represented G.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Thank you guys. Obviously it's amazing to be part of this group together. Obviously, SaintsCityMe, Chocobo Chasers, Saints Block Party podcast, which brought all of us together initially. Absolutely. And we've built this community together. It's but while also kind of sustaining our own communities as well. We built it kind of through this Discord, through Saints Block Party, formerly Saints Twitter podcast. We each have our own Discords, which we're all a part of as well. And it's just awesome to see, everybody growing. We've seen, obviously, you guys have some incredible guests on here. We're trying to get the gaming guests on our own and build those relationships. So it's amazing to see, man. I love that we get to do this together. I love getting to see you guys, when we have the opportunity to throughout the year. Dan, hopefully that's going to be something that happens here in the next few weeks. New job is the big thing in the way, so we'll be working through that though. But no, it's incredible. I actually didn't know that college football wasn't available to you guys previously, so that's actually pretty interesting. Just curious, what are your thoughts on CFB compared to say Madden? Because obviously, you guys typically tend to get it every year, every other year. So
yeah, I find it's a lot faster. When you getting ready pre-snap, there's not, especially on defense, there's not a lot of time to make adjustments. And there's, I never scramble.
Dan, sorry, can I interlude? What adjustments would you make, mate?
On defense,
can you give us the philosophy that you gave to Steve Hyde about playing it? What was that again?
So that was my offensive philosophy. And my offensive philosophy is I've already picked who I'm throwing to when I select my play. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I can't make reads. I haven't got time. And that's on Madden. So on this, it's so much quicker. But as I said, I would never scramble on Madden with a QB unless I had Lamar Jackson,
right,
or Kyler Murray.
Right.
On this, it's like you can scramble with pretty much any QB, and you've got a relative high degree of success when you scramble. I've found when I've attempted it on this game. So again, it just feels, you know, when you watch college football, how often QBs will scramble and run with the ball rather than throw the ball. It just feels like it's a really, like from a simulation point of view, it feels to me like it really does simulate the college game well. It's not as like the plays are a lot more simple on the playbook. I tend to find that it's not overly complex, a playbook. It's like fucking, you can either run 4 verts or maybe a slant route, and then everything else is, you know, fuck knows what's going on here. I'll see where I'll see where the ball ends up. Oh, it's a flea flicker. I didn't know it was going to be a flea flicker.
I will say it's a pretty, just like you said, very fast-paced game. It's, like I said, incredibly difficult, especially compared to like if you're, you know, coming from Madden. That gameplay is, because the one thing that, you know, me and Erik and Dash, when we were talking about the game, is we wanted to see something that was different than, you know, what we've seen in Madden. And it certainly is, obviously, from, you know, transfer portal and the recruiting process, which is a whole lot of fun, to the actual gameplay itself. One thing I think that they've done a good job is that, you know, college football players, especially compared to the league, and this is why so many players struggle when they get to the league, is recognition. When you're recognizing what play is going to happen, college players don't do that anywhere near to the level that NFL players do. And I think that's why defense is so hard. I think that's why you tend to see games it's 60-50. You know, it's almost kind of a regular occurrence there. And offense is a lot easier. The tackling is worse because, I mean, it's a lot easier to break tackles in this game because that is how the college game is. I mean, I can maybe count on one hand how many times I've seen like an NFL team score 60 points. I think I've seen the Saints score 60 once in my whole life. So it's just, I do think that it is mirroring life a little bit. It's not to say that the game is flawless, though. I mean, there's definitely some critiques of it. Some of the like voice, you know, the readings that like all of the commentators and stuff did, the way they put it together is a little, and there's definitely room to grow, but I'm glad to have it back. And I'm glad you guys get to experience it for the first time, man. That is so cool.
The breaking tackles thing is right, because obviously Dan said that he sent you the clip of where his wide out threw it behind him when he was just about to score a touchdown. But prior to that, literally, it was like fucking RoboCop was going through my defense. I think you took out 4 players on that run, didn't you, Dan? And whilst he's doing it, I'm screaming like, I was screaming, this is unfucking believable. What the? And then obviously the end was what it was. And I've got a video of myself reacting to it, and I'm absolutely peeing myself laughing at it. But yeah, I think
So one thing I found is that your wide receivers get open against DBs a lot more than in Madden. Like you'll look like I'd said it, I choose one play, one player to throw it to, but truthfully, like sometimes I look up and go, Jesus Christ, that guy there's no one near him, and you quickly get the ball to him. But that doesn't happen on Madden a lot, really. I don't think. Because obviously the computer's controlling your wide receivers most of the time until you throw the ball.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. It's just a very different game. I'm excited. Obviously, 1, it's back, but 2, I'm excited to see how, you know, College Football 26 kind of evolves from this, because there's a really good baseline for like an amazing college football game, but there definitely are a few things that I'd like to see change going into the next iteration. That being said, this game is made by EA, who has basically, you know, reskinned Madden, except for maybe once every like 3 to 4 years. And then they throw some incremental changes in there because people are going to, you know, pay to play it. I take college football, for example. So they had the regular edition and the deluxe edition. Deluxe edition was $30 more than the standard, but you got to play 3 days early. 3 days for $30, and 2.2 million people paid that. So
that's incredible.
I paid
$5.99.
I paid $5.99 for EA access to get it 3 days early.
That is also an option, absolutely. And they, but no, I mean, this is probably going to end up being the top selling game this year. Obviously, the hype was kind of unparalleled. There's no way the game could have matched the hype. Everybody, you know, from TikTok to any kind of short form content that was like video game related. You were seeing clips of people just so psyched about this. There were Twitter accounts devoted to this, like talking, years ago when this first got announced, because this game was actually supposed to come out last summer. And now it's apparent that the year that they took was mainly gameplay focused. And obviously it was kind of worth the wait because there was probably even less content that they initially had. Because I think that's part of my issue so far is that, the Road to Glory mode it's a little bare bones so far. Dynasty, there's definitely something like NIL isn't really a part of like recruiting at all, like I kind of thought it would. So there's definitely a few instances where they can go ahead and kind of increase, but it's a great starting point. I'm excited. I played like 35 plus hours of the game so far, so I am definitely not a hater. Man. Yeah, it's to be fair, I've been off work this entire week because I'm waiting to start a new job. So it's been a slow week for me. So I've had the time. So that was my full time job this week.
I'm trying to work out. So we did 6 minutes each quarter. So I've played it for 48 minutes. I bought it and then literally went straight into a game. And I'm not brilliant at Madden. In fact, I'm absolutely awful. But I was very excited, and we've sort of created, from a timing perspective, we've created a British league, haven't we, Dan? Purely because obviously we previously have been in leagues with you guys in the US, and some of the times just, especially for those who are.
I can't play Mitch every week. That's just
a little bit further west. That just doesn't work. So we just saw, obviously, try, and we haven't yet sort of done anything with that, but we've set it up, haven't we, Dan? And we will get into that. But we've got a couple of demon players in our league, which which
Baggy Dan and Aaron.
Baggy Dan he is a fierce competitor. So
I joke that Baggy Dan has the same approach to me, but it's not about the route. It's I'm throwing it to my tight end and he's going to beat you every time. That's Baggy Dan's tactic. He's got like George Kittle or someone like that. Like,
if it works, I mean, hey, what are you going to do? I'll say
exactly.
This.
Remember, I used to when I was. So go
ahead, Dan.
Go. No, I was just going to say, do you remember when we was in that Madden league? And I was using that jumbo package with the 2 tight ends, and it was working so well until I started playing G in London, and then they saw it once, and it was like, "Yeah, you're not doing that again." It's just like changing coverage. Thanks.
Yeah.
Dan's playing 1960s football while all of us are in the modern era right now. That's. I mean, honestly, this game from a passing perspective, I think that's where I've struggled the most on offense, just because quarterbacks are not super accurate all the time, except for if you're throwing the deep ball. That thing is getting where you need it to go. But one thing and this is just advice to any Madden player, if you're a passing guy, first thing you always want to do, identify what your rush looks like. If it's 4-man, okay, I know I'm gonna, there's gonna be enough DBs out there to be able to cover your guys. If it's a blitz, someone is gonna be uncovered. And that's a great real life tactic, but it works really well in Madden. So that's why I always choose to play with a guy in the flat or a guy on a slant or a guy on a screen, something that's going to give me a quick option. I'll still have those deep options available, but you just gotta prepare yourself a little bit. But I am a runner in this game. I love the option style offenses. I'm running a triple option, which is basically what Dan was just alluding to, just 2 tight ends. I've got 3 running backs in the backfield. We're in the ugliest formations you've ever seen, and we are running it down your throat, and we're throwing for like 60 yards a game, but we're winning. So
my one, I don't want to say it's a complaint, but my one comment, I suppose, is there isn't any. If you're a new player, there's no tutorials around the dynasty in terms of what you need to do for recruiting. So I've got, having never played this game, I had no clue what I was supposed to do from a recruiting point of view. Now, in the UK, we've grown up with soccer simulation games like Championship Manager and Football Manager, where you don't actually play the game, you're just managing the roster or the squad. So to me, like the analogy I drew is between the two is okay, this is like old school Championship Manager, Mike. Do you remember when you used to be able to like, offer them cars and stuff like that? So there's similar things that, but I would say they probably should look at least having some kind of basic, tutorial on how the dynasty works, because I was just like, do I offer everyone a scholarship and hope they come, or do I just try and find players that it wasn't very obvious to me.
Yeah, absolutely. That was some of our critiques as well, is that because my first year, because I'm playing with my alma mater, Utah State, and they had a really terrible recruiting class my first year. They were, and I'm not in a big conference. We're playing in the Mountain West, which is pretty small schools, and we were like third to last, I think, in our conference our first year. And it's gotten better because I kind of have to understand it as you continue to go if you want to compete for a title. But yeah, it's a little difficult for sure.
The comparison there with Championship Manager, Dan, didn't sit very well with me, because I think you're aware of the problems that caused in my life many years ago.
I'm pretty sure I failed some exams at school because I didn't bother. I remember once I did media studies at A level, which is like, so we finished school at 16 here, and then you do 6. I think we talked about it in Discord. You do 2 more years, like in college, like junior college type thing. So one of my subjects was media studies, and I remember my media studies teacher phoning me up and saying, "Are you coming in today? Because you haven't been in for 2 lessons." And I said, "No, I'm playing Championship Manager. And I'm on a real good run, so I can't save it, because I'd convinced myself when you save it, if you're on a good run, it just resets it." So I was like, I'm smashing it. So you'll see me when I start losing, and that didn't go down well, especially when she phoned my mum.
Yeah, I think I can topple that, Dan. Myself and my now wife split up for nearly 18 months because of my my behaviour around Championship Manager, and also I was smoking something that I probably shouldn't have been quite a lot at that time. So I think those two coupled together, that's not a recipe for a successful life, I can assure you. So,
or marriage.
I've never ever played that game again since. So yeah, it's anyway, swiftly moving on.
Staring at Mike from across the room like the Green Goblin mask right now.
Do it.
Yeah. But hey, look, I've enjoyed the small snippet. Yet again, I've been really busy trying to sort my house out prior to hopefully a move very soon. So I've not had the opportunity to play very much. So I can't sort of go in depth the way that Dan has about certain aspects of it. But I have to admit, in the little that I've played, I've really enjoyed it. From a run perspective, I've never been able to run in whichever game I play. So I've made a vow to myself that I'm going to learn and teach myself how to run properly, because I think I get exposed very quickly because everything goes to a pass after literally trying one run. It's like, oh, fuck sakes.
But again, that kind of just alludes to what Dan was talking about, that, a trial mode or, some tutorial would be so great here, because you could do one for Dynasty talking about all the recruiting aspects, but honestly, just for the gameplay itself, like, there's new buttons, especially compared to Madden. Like if you're running the option is so heavy in college football, RPOs, all of, those kinds of things. It's a whole different animal. So it's just, I think that they knew the people had waited for so long, and they're like, this is 80% of maybe what the vision that we wanted. So let's at least get this out to the people, and next year can be a little bit closer to 100%.
It's a good point you make on the gameplay, because there's 4 different ways you can throw the ball from a controller point of view. Yeah. And they don't actually say try it. Like Madden, when they changed Madden on the throwing motion,
there was a whole thing at the beginning.
Yeah. Try it. Yeah. Which one do you prefer? This it was like choose how you want to throw the ball. I was like, Like,
I guess I'm going with the new way.
But I just went with the one where I pressed the button. I was like,
yeah.
But that one relies on you having. That one's more about your players, isn't it? It's like if you throw into a good receiver, you got more chance of catching it. So that lends itself to people building good rosters, I suppose, which is probably better for dynasty if you're building a dynasty college team.
Definitely.
So, G, from your point of view, like a good start, stuff to improve, but happy enough with where it is at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I'll end up putting 200-300 hours in this game, before the next iteration next year without it, because I'm a creature of habit. I'll always do that.
Yeah.
We refer to it on our podcast as turn your brain off kind of games. So there's games you kind of get sucked into that are like, really narrative heavy and they tell an amazing story, but you want to be focused when you're playing those kinds of things because you want to be able to soak in that story. It's like watching a good film or television series. I can turn on college football, and if I know I've got 45 minutes, let's run through this game. Let's play, let's have fun, do a little bit of recruiting, do that kind of stuff. So college football is perfect for that. And I am still having a lot of fun. That's what I'd hope everybody is doing. I know some people take it very seriously, and it's not going to be so fun at some point, but and there's people are going to try and find like exploitations in the game and make it as not fun for everybody else as possible. But I'm here to just have a good time. So
one thing I wanted to ask you, and I put it in our very dubious Instagram group that we have that I won't talk about covert, but someone put a video up of high school teams in the game. Is that just someone just mocking it up, or is that a real thing you can download?
So
high school
that
teams?
was actually the norm before. So, and it's something that people are kind of really upset that's not there anymore. So as part of Road to Glory, so in this year's iteration, if you want to be a high school player and go play college football, you choose whatever star player you want to be. If you choose a lower star, it's going to take a lot longer to get playing time. So I definitely recommend choosing a higher star, 4 or 5 stars, so that you can go and you can start wherever you want, play immediately, and win the Heisman or whatever. But and then you just start at whatever, you can walk on at schools, you can get a scholarship, whatever. Well, so 2014 was the last college football that we had before the lawsuit. Well, you got to choose your high school that you played at, and they had actual high school names in the game. So I could choose mine was Mountain View High School in Orem, Utah. And we played, and you would play 4 games. And the players that you played against were trash in high school. Because, I mean, if you're supposed to be you're supposed to be a college level talent, that is what it is like. And you would just dominate these kids. And so depending on your performance through these 3 or 4 games, that would be your star ranking. And this is something they absolutely should look to bring back, because I think it made the experience just a little more immersive. It also was just fun to just, it's like kind of like when you see the clips of like Michael Jordan at those basketball camps with the kids. That's what it was like. Basically, you're just dunking on kids the entire time. And speaking of dunking, I am very curious to see if maybe this is going to potentially open the door for other college sports. Obviously, college basketball is another very popular, sport that is available within NCAA. And who knows, maybe we'll see the return of that as well.
I'd quite like them to do lacrosse.
Man,
it's a violent game. It's a game that is the oldest game in the United States. It was played by native people before European settlers came to those shores. Get it out there. Lacrosse 25. That's what I'm saying.
We're putting it in the universe right now.
We're manifesting it. I don't know how lacrosse works. I have no clue, but I know it exists.
You know the history. You know the history of it. You haven't got a clue. You haven't got a clue how it's played. But hey, look.
And I only know the history of it because they played it in. They played it in what was in Echo, the Marvel thing, in one of the early episodes when she was going back for ancestors. They were playing lacrosse. there you go. Marvel teaches you something.
Right.
Hey,
Well, thank you. Look, anyway, I'm gonna move the subject on a little bit, right? So yet again, I'm turning, and I want to know, G, what inspired you to start a gaming podcast?
man, so that's a really good question. So I initially started Chocobo Chasers in 2022. And so the reason it came up is I actually went on a friend's podcast in relation to my music, because I'm a musician.
A great musician as well, may I add. A great musician.
I love writing, and my friend just interviews different artists across Utah. And honestly, I love the experience of it, just getting to talk about, just like we're talking now. It's just really personable. It's a great chance to be able to talk about things maybe that are weighing on your mind, or experiences you've had, and be able to share that just with everyone. And then it's just up to you to kind of get it out there. And so I've always been a video game guy. I've been playing video games since I was a kid. My brother and I probably have bonded more closely over video games than anything else. My wife puts up with it, and she is a saint for doing so. And she supported me every step along the way, because she is absolutely wonderful. So shout out, Al.
Shout out to Al, absolutely.
But honestly, I love talking video games. So I actually started it in 2022. I did 4 episodes, and I really wasn't getting the the looks, and I wasn't getting as much accolades isn't the right word, but I guess reception that I was hoping for initially. Yeah. I have a lot of friends who I thought would be really supportive. And this isn't anything against them. Just, you have to find something that's going to be interesting to people. And that can be tough sometimes. I mean, if it was easy, everybody would do it. Right. And so, I kind of took a step back, and I did those 4 episodes. And this was after kind of an exhausting, I crowdsourced the name for the podcast. I had a list of 5 or 6 we were kind of talking through. And I was working with a few of my friends, my wife, and just, seeing, what sounds best, everything like that. And I created the idea for the logo. I hired somebody to go ahead and create it for us. They did an amazing job. And I felt really good about everything to start. Again, those 4 episodes happened, and, then it kind of just disappeared for a little bit. And then one day, as part of the Saints Block Party podcast, 2 friends, Erik and Dash, actually reached out, and they said, "Hey, you should bring this back. Not necessarily with us, but you should start doing it again." And so that meant a lot. It was very supportive. It was very kind of them to, push your friends to be better. And so I ended up saying, "Well, why don't you guys come on for an episode?" Because my first 4 episodes I did with different guest hosts.
Yeah.
Well, so we do it, and we had a great time. And then they said, "Hey, well, do you guys want to just do this full time with me? And we can record this weekly. We can talk games. We can talk all this kind of stuff." And they both said, "Yeah, we'd love to." Well, and then we do it. And by our 8th or 9th episode, we ended up getting our first major guest, who is Doug Cockle from the Witcher games. And that really just catapulted things, because those relationships, one thing that you learn from doing this is that everybody in that space knows each other, and they talk and they say, "Hey, I had a great experience with those guys." And so honestly, we've talked with a lot of these folks, 25 plus interviews at this point. And so I've been doing this with Erik and Dash for a little bit over a year now. And it started off, again, just us talking games. Now we're doing interviews with different folks in this space. So this is actors, directors, content creators, developers. And part of that is also building those relationships. We're partnered with 2 games right now for their upcoming release. One is called Good Night's Rest, which is going to be a PC release. It's a RPG. And the other one is a game actually made by one of our previous guests called Eternal Strands. It's a very action-y focused game, and it's also going to be available on console. It's wishlist able right now if you own a PlayStation 5 or Xbox or PC, it's available to wish list. So definitely do that if you're listening. But it is, I don't take any of this for granted. It is absolutely like the hugest honor to be able to get to do this. We are, I've got our first media credentials. We're actually going to go to an event here in Utah, which I'll be representing Chocobo Chasers. Al is going to be my camera person for the event too. So we're going together. So getting to share that with my wife too is like, it's really special. And then getting, we're going to be meeting not only a lot of gaming people, but people that are incredibly popular within, pop culture. You've got, mainstays from like the Terminator franchise. There's like the Hobbits from the Lord of the Rings films are going to be there. And there's so many interesting faces. And obviously we'll have a major focus on the gaming ones because that's what we talk about. But it's just, again, I don't take this experience for granted. It's been a whirlwind so far, and 1 year down, and I'm excited where things are heading right now.
And so you should.
I listen to the podcast. I'm not a big gamer really,
yeah.
Like other than like sports games, and I might dabble in the odd other game here and there. But I listen because I get to hear my friends who I don't get to see and talk to very often. I get to hear them talking and enjoying each other's company. But some of these interviews, I walk away going, that guy's amazing. Like really, like the guy from Helldivers. Was it Helldivers? If I got that right, he was brilliant.
He absolutely
was amazing.
And it's insane to also consider the amount of projects, because yes, they're video game actors. Most of them have come from theater. They've come from television. They've come from film. We've talked to people who've been part of like the hugest franchises in the world. We're talking Star Wars. We're talking, like Craig was a part of like Nickelodeon's heyday. We're talking like 90s Nickelodeon, all that, Kablam, that kind of stuff. And it's just, it's wild to see. Again, it's a big world, but it's a small world at the same time, just to see, how connected all of these people are. And they really are just like, they're so friendly. For one, obviously you get to see that a little bit in the interviews, but you also get to see that like they have some of the most unique experiences in the world. Like, for example, Daisuke Tsuji from Ghost of Tsushima, he is the title character in the game. He worked as a clown like for years before, and now he's the face of a huge PlayStation franchise. Life doesn't necessarily make sense sometimes, but they just, all of these guys and women as well are finding their own way. And it is incredible just to hear about their life. And we try to, make those interviews as, I'd say interesting for them as possible, because they get interviewed all the time. They're getting, people reaching out to them and saying, well, tell me about, how did you get this role? We want to do a little bit more than that. We want to talk about, well, hey, we want you to know that we did our research and that we, looked you up on IMDb. We've seen that you were part of this franchise that maybe not a lot of people know about, and that, people would want to know and would maybe want to check out as well. Because, a lot of these people are also still getting residuals from a lot of those kinds of things. So, it is in their best, interest to share. So,
yeah. It's you touching on, and myself and Dan have spoken about this, but we've also, even on our podcast, we've had numerous guests who have sort of said the same thing to us. It's when you get a guest on and you actually care about the guest enough to actually have a real deep dive into what their life has been about, not what you want to talk to them about, whether from our point of view, the Saints and the city and stuff. But when you actually talk to them about other aspects of their life, that's the thing that I think enables them to sort of think, this is something I like being involved with, because these people actually seem to care about other things other than just the main subject matter. and we've had that numerous times, Dan, haven't we? Where it's I'm going to call it the SaintsCityMe stalking, because I don't want to particularly put you in the firing line, but there's a lot of stalking goes on. But I think that's really important, and it does. I think guests appreciate that, the fact that you're not it's just not one sort of one dimension of them that you're looking at.
I've said it before. My inspiration is Sean Evans from Hot Ones, because that research team on that
incredible
show is the best research team on the planet. And if you can even aspire to be 0.01% of what they are, you've done a good job, because they're that good.
Well, and you see it all the time in their interviews. The guests will be like, "How did you know that?" And we've had instances exactly like that. And you'll have the guests be like, "Wow, like you really did do your research. Like you do know what you're talking about here." And what's so funny is we've talked about it on the show, but honestly, some of the most memorable experiences of the entire thing have been what's occurred off screen. When we're finished recording, we're just shooting the shit with these people, and they just spill their heart, and they'll talk to you about some crazy stuff going on, and it's like, what? Like you're talking to us about this, and then they'll be like, oh hey, would you want to talk to so and so from this cast as well? Like I'd be happy to reach out. And it's like, yeah, I would absolutely love that. And honestly, that's been a big part of why we've been able to flesh out our guest list, is because one, our guests have enjoyed coming on, and they've talked to people that we've already interviewed, and it's just this web that's continuing to grow, and you just do that by spreading that positivity. And I mean, I talked about we're going to be representing Chocobo Chasers in Salt Lake for our local Comic-Con. Some of our guests are actually going to be there. We're going to meet them in person, be able to talk to them, and so we're going to try and get some surprises like ready for them, some Chocobo Chasers stuff, so that we hope that they know that like they have this huge impact on coming to talk to us, and how much that's meant to us. So stay tuned, because that's coming up in the end of September. We'll have a bunch of fun clips and details for that when it comes. So
look forward to that. I went to the London Comic-Con last year, and I wouldn't have known half the people who were there if I hadn't listened to a podcast. Look, there's all the Baldur's Gate guys, and they've all interviewed my friends. And
their lines were, pushed to the back too.
Biggest line there. I would have gone and spoke to them if I didn't have to queue up for like 2 hours and pay 20 quid to have a photo with them. Otherwise, I would have gate crashed and gone, "Hi, I'm friends with G, Dash, and Erik." And Doug Cockle was there as well. There was loads of people there that I knew from listening to your podcast. So
stop being so cheap, Dan. Stop being so cheap. Both with your time and with your money.
I spent my money on pop heads for Dylan. Funko
Thank
pop heads.
God
for Dylan.
you said pop heads. Anyway, but it is incredible.
One last plug. Go on.
No, I was going to say it is absolutely incredible seeing that journey within just a year, from when the three of you sort of got together and we're watching you guys sort of chop it up. Just the interaction that you've had with people from huge, the huge world of gaming who are star names, but also the involvements that you're now getting, the interactions, the real interactions that you're getting. It's been absolutely incredible watching that small piece of your journey, because I know that journey is not finished. It's gonna absolutely continue, and we're just pleased to say that we can call you a friend.
Hey, that's
proper friends. Proper friends.
Yeah.
Good friends. So
I don't text everyone on the weekend to tell them of dumb shit I saw on the internet all the time. So it's but no, it's it and the same goes for you guys. I mean, obviously we, from the time Dash and Erik started, you guys, and your year mark was very close after, I think we started our YouTube. And so timeline is very close together. And I've loved seeing you guys get to chat with so many people that I have known and followed for years in the Saint space. I mean, obviously John Hendricks, Nick Underhill, like there's people that, I respect their opinions quite a bit. And because they've taught me so much about what I've learned about the team, throughout my time as a fan, because I've been a fan of the Saints since I was
Oh, wait, G, stop.
Wait.
Oh,
Wait. That's the
tagline.
next subject. Yeah,
okay,
that's the next
I'm
subject.
stopping. So,
all right.
Pull it back.
So, hey.
That's what she said.
Yeah, all right. No, and yet again, you are right. Our timelines are pretty similar. And myself and Dan have been on yet again, it feels like I'm in X Factor or The Voice, saying we've been on an incredible journey as well. But we have been.
it has.
The amount of people that we've been able to speak to, people who are notable residents of that city, and who also now, and much the same as you, G, we can actually now call some of these people genuine friends, which for me, when Dan sort of forced me to do the pod in a good way, and I have said this before, no, but Dan knows I'm forever eternally grateful for Dan for doing it. Just even in that year, the people that we've had the opportunity to talk to who can now absolutely call friends is just incredible, absolutely incredible. And obviously it's the same sort of thing for you and Dash and Erik, and it's incredible what just talking to people what the results that can come out the back end of that are. Just mind-boggling at times. So yeah, we're very grateful as well, aren't we, Dan?
No, this is the point of my life. No, I love it. I just love talking to people. I love talking to people about things I enjoy. Like we talked about before, G. Like you've asked me like where my fascination with the States comes from and stuff, and it's all embedded from an early age, and just wanting that desire to talk to people and understand them. And I think it's something I like about the States is I like learning about different cultures, and it's a country with 50 different cultures, 100 different cultures, millions of different cultures. So that's why I love it. And getting to, I never thought I'd be friends with someone from Utah or from Colorado or wherever,
LA, New Orleans,
LA,
Pennsylvania, go around the country,
Hawaii.
Yeah,
it's brilliant. It's one of the best things that ever happened to me, aside from my wife and kids. That's borderline. That's borderline.
Depends on the day. So
and you dickhead, pointing at your head.
Yeah, that's it. I wasn't pointing at my dick, just my head.
Can't remember our friends. Have to remember our friends back home. But no, it's you guys are absolutely right. I mean, what you guys have built and who you've had the opportunity to talk to, because you've had guests like me, like Joey, friends talking about our experiences, being a fan, but not necessarily, from that area, all the way to, just like you said, Underhill, John Hendricks, Ross Jackson, people who are, extremely passionate about the work that they do as it relates to the team. And, obviously people who've built an entire brand talking about the team, the connections they've built. So it's a testament to you guys. Obviously I know you guys work extremely hard to do what you do, and I love it. I tune in every episode, and so I'll be excited. It's a little nerve-wracking following up Nick Underhill. So this is me just trying to keep it cool right now.
Who did we do? It was Steve. We sandwiched him between Doug Tatum and Ross Jackson, and he was just like, we told him afterwards, we're doing Ross Jackson next. He was like, "You fuckers, you've put me between someone who works for the Saints." Yeah, he was fuck you. It's like, no, you did fine. That was a good episode, but we got pretty drunk and waffled a lot.
Yeah.
Hell of
a lot of shit. Yeah. We've got to learn our lessons in certain regards.
I was going to say, I'm a little surprised. It's a Friday night, no.
Hey, look,
I'm a few beers in.
Yeah. So am I.
And I was drinking before I finished work because it was Friday and it was
all right, Dan, leave it alone. All right. So yeah. We're talking about that, but now obviously we have to go into what we stopped you talking about earlier, G. So
Saints.
Was it the Saints or was it the City for you, my friend?
So it was neither. So I played football in junior high school and high school.
What position?
So when I first started playing football, I was an offensive lineman. I know my build screams offensive line, but when you're in, junior high, everybody's the same size, so it kind of works.
Yeah.
And ended up playing some D-line, ended up playing some safety. Safety is probably the place I think that I would have been the best at if I would have just committed to that the entire time. Just the build and everything probably worked a little bit better. But anyway, I was big into video games back then. And if you pull up the cover of College Football 2006, who's on the cover? But my favorite all-time college football player, Reggie Bush. So I followed that USC team. I was on a cruise ship when they played Texas in the national championship, and I stayed away from my family so I could watch bits and pieces of the game. And I ended up catching the end and seeing Vince Young go ahead and pull that insane run out to win that game. But so when Reggie Bush was getting drafted, I did not have a team at that time. My dad is a diehard Raiders fan, and God bless him. He supports the absolute worst teams in sports. I'd have no idea how he does it.
Raiders.
Yeah, he's a Raiders. He's a Knicks fan. Like, that man just he is a masochist.
I turned my back on the Knicks for the Pelicans.
Yeah. So, my dad's a Raiders fan. My mom is a Steelers fan. And I fucked with both of them a little bit. So it was, but I didn't have my own team. So I was kind of in that space trying to figure it out. Reggie Bush gets drafted to the Saints. Sean gets hired. Drew gets signed. I think, you know what? This is a team I can root for. Ended up saying okay, this will be my team. My parents got me a Reggie Bush jersey for Christmas that year. And that was enough. I was sold at that point. So
was were your mum and dad pissed a little bit though about it? Were they
that I didn't choose their teams?
Yeah.
My dad felt like I was a little bit of I was just grandstanding with this team that was, had never been shitty, while I had been a fan of them. So he gave me a little bit of a hard time about that. And then has now given me a hard time since, Drew and Sean left. Like, I told you, this is going to be coming. I was like, but you've been experiencing this for 20 years.
I was going to say, from a Raiders fan.
Did you say, I've seen one of these?
Yeah. And I told him the Raiders won the Super Bowl when he was 2. So that's forever ago. But no, I got to experience, obviously, the Saints winning a championship. Probably the most impactful year of my life. I was 17. I lost my grandma that year. And it was just a very that's just a time when so much goes on. And so for that to happen in that year, it felt so special. And I felt 2018 was that year. I've talked about this a lot, but so I used to work for a ticketing company. I probably shouldn't say their name. They're very large.
Fine.
But
they get extortion fees.
Yeah, that doesn't narrow it down, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said it.
So I used to work for
exactly.
Yeah. I used to work for this ticketing company. In 2018, I actually found out I was going to the Super Bowl for work. And I found out at the very beginning of the playoffs. So Saints were the number 1 seed. Things were perfect. It gets closer, and I'm seeing all this Facebook stuff. The last time the Saints went 13-3, they had 3 losses, and it was to these 3 teams. And that's the exact same teams that we lost to that year. And it's oh my God, this is fate. Get the number 1 seed. They're doing everything they need to do. And then obviously I don't necessarily need to dive into that terrible history that happened on that fateful January day, but
we were there.
Let's dive in real deep on it. Come on, let's do it.
I'm going to need therapy after this episode.
Let me just crack this open.
Yeah, we'll need a few of those if we're going to do that. But no, it was honestly, it was a cool experience. You get to meet a lot of fans and everything, but every fan I'd meet, I'm a Saints fan, and they'd just be like, oh, even the Rams fans were like, they knew they weren't supposed to be there, and obviously the game itself showed that they weren't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. It just. I wish they would have won that one. Drew could have gone out. Things, the whole trajectory of the franchise changes if that happens.
Changes, doesn't it? Yeah.
They signed Tom Brady potentially right after that, and that potentially just continues a Sean Payton-led dynasty. Because I think any point that you have 3 Super Bowls, I think that's what you kind of have to refer to it as. If you're at 2, it's kind of a territory where people him and haw about it. The Giants won 2, the Steelers won 2 with Ben Roethlisberger. Obviously the Patriots dynasty is unlike anything we've ever seen before, but we're experiencing a Chiefs dynasty right now. They're potentially 3 in a row, which has never been done. And so it's hard. Being a Saints fan is definitely not for the faint of heart. But
it scarred a lot of grown men. 2018.
It has
scarred them.
Yeah.
Like
unlike anything else, sports has a funny way of just ripping your heart out, but it keeps you coming back. The highs are unlike anything you'll ever experience. The lows, again, also just unlike anything you'll experience. Funny enough, my first experience was actually in the Dome, was not even for a Saints game. I actually went to New Orleans for work while I was working for previous said ticketing company. And I ended up going to the Sugar Bowl. So I watched Jalen Hurts play against Clemson in the Sugar Bowl, and Alabama just mollywopped them. So it was a fun game being able to experience that. Got to go with some friends. But I knew entering the Dome, I said, this is my place. Like I knew the second I walked in there and seeing, Drew's face on the wall and all of that kind of stuff, I have to be here. I have to be here for a Saints game. And I had plans to actually go during the 2020 season. COVID happens and, the whole world goes to shit. So it's not like I hadn't planned on it. It just, unfortunately, that's the way that it goes. And, it still breaks my heart. Drew had to go out, with no fans really in the stands or anything. And
that's heartbreaking. That's absolutely heartbreaking from a Saints fan's perspective.
Yeah. So no, so Reggie Bush, long story, but Reggie Bush was the reason I got into the Saints. And obviously I have kept the fandom long after he's gone as well. So
I think Reggie is a common denominator with a lot of people that I know. So he was a key part of it for me because he was part of that. I've talked about the article I read and about him getting drafted. I'd never seen him play football at college, but the fact that he wore Adidas and David Beckham was doing adverts with him and stuff like that, it was just like, hey, this guy's got to be huge. And I think he's a key component for someone like London as well. I think we're hoping to get London on, so I won't go into more detail, but I think he was pretty key in London's fandom, and just multiple people like Reggie Bush. Probably, whilst his achievements on the field, he won a Super Bowl, but he wasn't the player we thought he was going to be from college. He's probably done more for this team in terms of the fans he's attracted or brought to the team from outside the city and the state than any other player, I would say.
Yeah.
And
our boys on the 28-3 podcast say that all the time, don't they? That period, it wasn't Drew, it wasn't Sean, it was Reggie that brought the Saints
all this
back.
hype. It was. Yeah. And you know what's funny? He might be the 4th best player in that draft class, just from the Saints, because you had Marcus Colston, Thomas Morstead, Roman Harper. I think it's either Carl Lewis or Joey Evans. Yeah, one of
Joey Evans in that class.
Yeah, so that's you've got one Hall of Fame level player, 2 Ring of Honor level players. Morstead is going to be in the Saints Ring of Honor when he retires, and has had a near Hall of Fame level career for a punter.
Yeah,
punters don't really
get
it.
It would be a fair argument that Morstead should, his career,
I've looked at
his abilities and his Sorry, Dan, go on, mate.
I was going to say I've looked at his stats, and I think he plays 2 more years, and he might be one of the top 10 appearances in the league. So I know special teams players as punters and kickers don't necessarily get into the Hall of Fame, but when you're playing that many games, you've got to be under consideration. If you're like the most appearances for a punter, like why would you not? And he was one of the best punters in the league for ages. He just didn't get the recognition because it was like king out in Oakland because he was doing all these YouTube videos. People going, "Oh yeah, this guy," and that. It's like you got this guy out here who's Mr. Consistent. Some games he didn't even punt because the QB was so good, and when he did have to come in, he nailed them. Like,
well, and he's responsible for the most famous onside kick in NFL history, and
he should get in just for that.
And a play that we can't even do anymore. You know, that's
no. Yeah, it's extinct now from the game, which is
so
in itself.
Let's clip this, and tag him because he keeps saying he'll come on, and then I can never pin him down. Maybe it's because he listens. Maybe he listens sometimes and says, "I can't go on here. These guys swear and curse." And I know he's a man of God. He's probably like that.
He's got British folk in his family.
Yeah, he's lived in New Orleans.
We know
he's heard it all.
Yeah. They swear exactly. New Orleans and British folk.
Yeah,
he's a prime candidate to come on.
Yeah, no, that's and funny enough, there's actually only one punter in the Hall of Fame. That's Ray Guy as right now, and obviously punters were a lot different of like just in terms of roles, way back when, and like the Raiders took him in the first round of the draft. That's how long ago we're talking. So it was no, absolutely love Morstead. Really wish we would have retained him, especially after the whole Gillikin mess. But to be fair, Gillikin is also doing decently well for himself in Arizona. So we'll see. Yeah. I think Morstead probably has at least a year or two left. So
yeah, he's built like a linebacker.
I mean, that man keeps himself.
Massive.
He is, and he keeps himself in tip-top shape. You just see that all the time, don't you, on his socials? The man looks after himself.
Legend.
Yeah. So obviously you said that you went to the Sugar Bowl, G, and that was your first experience of the Dome. I'm assuming obviously that was your first experience of New Orleans.
It was.
Mm-hmm. Were you out and about with your friends? Fancy free and all that sort of thing. Were you enjoying yourself whilst you were over there?
What's funny is I obviously the Sugar Bowl happens in January. It was cold. I'm from Utah. Utah is a very cold place in the winter. Regularly hits single digits Fahrenheit over here. And so I'm going to New Orleans in January, and I'm like, this is going to be great. Like I could just wear a hoodie. It'll probably be pretty nice. And I'm going to New Orleans for this work trip, and it was colder than it was at home. The one time I ended up going because you have that lake breeze coming in, and man, that cold air blowing was just, it's rough. And so I was with a few work friends, had a great time. Work gave me my own room, so I was just enjoying myself while I'm there. But no, it was my first experience in the city, being able to, I did all the touristy things, Cafe du Monde, just walking down Bourbon for the first time. And, it's good to have your first trip kind of be like that. And then every subsequent trip after becomes, oh, well, let's go. Now I have favorite places I'll go. Now I'll, get to be able to, you get to try beignets from Cafe Beignet or, all these other places, which are, great in this. Because, really, you're not going to go wrong no matter where you go. Everywhere in the city is just amazing. And there's a reason that, New Orleans culture, especially from a food perspective, it's unmatched. There's nothing like it.
Okay, just on that one where you were taking a wander down Bourbon, and like what were you from somebody from America, from a completely different part in Utah where things are obviously very different?
Very.
What was your impression as an American walking down that street? Because we've spoken about it. Even for us, it blew our minds, but we're sort of used to that from European holiday destinations over here.
Yeah,
streets can be like that, but it still blows your mind. So, what was it like for someone like yourself?
It was very different. So, Utah is a very religious-heavy part of the U.S. Mormon, religion is king here. I myself am not, but you see it's so, very conservative Christian. That's what they, very clean cut. Everything is so loose and so fun in New Orleans. It's very loud, which is great. I mean, that's why you go there. Getting to, the sights and the sounds, the smells of the city, just getting to take that in. It is so different. Especially from where I live now. It's a very rural community, a lot of farming. And you don't get a ton of that out there. And obviously we're just talking about New Orleans, Louisiana. Itself is so different culturally, just from one place to another. But yeah, it was a culture shock a little bit, because I have spent almost my entire life in Utah. I was in the military, so I did a little bit more on the East Coast, but it's even just far different from that, getting to experience. And I'm there on New Year's Eve in New Orleans, and as raucous as you could imagine, like for my first time. So I've gotten to experience, Halloween, New Year's Eve, all these incredibly crazy times in this city, and it doesn't disappoint every single time you're there.
You're pleased to hear that, Dan, aren't you?
Room. I'll leave the kids hotel room. Lock the doors, kids. Don't let anyone in. I'll see you at 4 or 5 in the morning.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. That's just
if you're lucky.
Yeah. Use to find my iPhone app, and you'll just come find me.
Yeah. I'll see you at the airport, right? There's your passport. If I'm not there, just go home.
Yeah, just leave without me.
I'll be living on a swamp somewhere, like in the bayou. If I get my way, I won't be coming back. Yeah.
I'll just message Nick and let her know as we're talking.
Yeah, if you want
to,
yeah. No, don't, because she wants it. You might find this amusing, G. My wife would like us to do a podcast with her and Karen, Mike's wife, talking about what it's like to be the wives of Saints fanatics in the UK.
That would be an amazing episode. I would absolutely tune in.
And I think Nick will get pretty pissed as well.
It's under heavy consideration, so I think it's going to happen. So, and it will. I think that'll be a very interesting pod, because it's taken from a different perspective, isn't it? Which
dealing with these two dickheads.
Yeah,
and she will call me that. She will call me that.
Yeah. You're not wrong. So you're obviously, that was the first time there. Your first Saints game. So was I there with you?
You were there.
I was.
Getting to see the Raiders actually last year. Or not last year.
You must have loved that then with your dad. That must have even better.
I sent him texts and said, "Fuck it, old man." Just made sure he felt my wrath for that whole entire day. And then the Saints were like, "Hey, that quarterback, let's get him." That's gonna. But no, it was amazing. Honestly, like, nobody really prepares you for like the walk up to the dome, and that is almost more special than the game itself. Just getting to see all the vendors, all the food, all of the dancing, all the music, the tailgating. I mean, it is such an experience. And I get tailgating is a thing everywhere, but New Orleans, it is different. Like, you get to, I know, like, Bills Mafia, and New York has their market where they're doing, all this stuff too. And it's just, but there is really just no place like New Orleans. So getting to experience that for the first time, it was magical.
I cried last time we went, didn't I? Walking up the dome.
I think there was more than one reason for that, though, Dan.
Yeah, we talked about it enough.
Yeah, it was
on that night. G and Al made the sensible decision of going home after Bayou Beer Garden. We made the ill-advised decision of just hit the quarter and see what happens with Alex.
That's a serious mistake right there. We're the masters of the Irish goodbye. So we'll take one last look at the party and
respect. Can't respect that more, G. Cannot respect that more.
I've done that twice. When did I do it most recently? I had a work summer party at my new job, and it was over the park, and they was all getting ready to go to the pub, and I didn't want to go, and I just pretended I was going to the toilet, and just waited for everyone to leave, and then went.
And then they'll ask you about it on like Monday. So, oh, hey, where'd you go? Just, I had to go home. Okay.
Yeah.
Just, you know.
Did you go home, Dan? No, Dan went to meet a Saints fan in London and got shit faced.
Yeah.
I was at the night you met James.
Yeah. We met him at the Hard Rock. Was it Hard Rock Cafe's back bar? Drunk there, and then I took him to that Americana bar where they do shit gumbo. And then I got us a Sazerac to finish the night, and that thing finished me off. I was standing in McDonald's on Tottenham Court Road. I was at Darth Mall pacing up and down, waiting for my order, but also swaying at the same time because I was so drunk.
It took me
an hour and a half to eat 3 cheeseburgers.
Oh my god,
3,
and it's my
just
go-to.
Totally gone.
My go-to when I'm drunk is I'm going to have cheeseburgers from McDonald's. I don't normally have McDonald's, but
to be honest.
Yeah, it's not too big, and you can sort of do one, and then. But yeah, I was sitting on. It felt like the longest train journey home. I was resting my head against the seat, trying to eat this cheeseburger, and it was not good. But I didn't do my usual. Normally, I come home and carry on drinking, but I was like, I got into bed, and I think my wife said last thing she heard me say was, "I'm in trouble," and then passed out. And when I say if I'm in bed and I say I'm in trouble, that means the room is spinning, and she's going to be just don't be sick on me. I just need to get asleep as quick as possible. Life of a Brit, G. Life of a Brit.
Guys, because I could not keep up with you guys even if I wanted to.
I did see a warning in the Discord recently saying, "Yeah, you'll be all right, but just don't try and keep up with the Brits."
No. Well, and the thing is, you'll have the new people, and they'll say, "Well, I'm gonna," they'll hear stories about Alex, and they'll hear all these things.
Yeah.
Don't try it. Just leave it alone. Be happy.
Know your limitations.
Yeah,
I think that warning came from Wayne, if memory.
It was Wayne. Yeah. Someone will always go, "I can do it." It's like when you watch the movies with the tough guy, and he goes, "Oh, I can take him." It's like,
yeah,
good luck.
Get your ass handed to you in about 15 minutes. So,
especially in so many
absolutely.
ways. Beautiful, man.
So obviously, you go to the game. As you were saying, G, it's like the walk up. Obviously, New Orleans does tailgating a little bit different. You haven't got this vacuous, massive this large area where you get a mixture of both, can't you? It's if you want, you can. We know our friend Max Darth Saints will bar hop his way up to the Dome early morning. We've got plenty of friends from the UK who have their designated tailgates. I think we all now have ours with Alan, don't we? Where we go there for a period of time and donate to a fantastic charity. And the work that he does is unbelievable. But then when you get there, what obviously you were there for the Sugar Bowl, so we've talked before about when you walk in, it's the vastness of the arena. You don't realize just how big it is because you look at it from the outside and it's a little bit sunken, so it doesn't look big. But obviously you went in there with Saints fans, and I'm sure if memory serves, there were a lot of Raiders fans there.
There was, and Raiders are one of those teams, they travel incredibly well because, to be fair, you have got to be someone loyal to support a team as much as they do. Like,
I'm gonna send this pod to your dad.
Hey, I do, and
it's like the Simpsons meme. Like, he's dead. Stop kidding.
He gets it all the time. So he gives as much as he takes. So I'm sure I'll get my own ribbing later, but. No, that experience. And it's so funny because, again, just like you said, tons of Raiders fans, and they talk shit. I mean, any team that you're playing, they got faith in their team because they've traveled here. I was on my way into the Dome last year. We're playing the Chicago Bears, and I'm flying from Utah, and there's a ton of Bears fans on my flight. It was kind of wild to see how many, and they talked their talk. Obviously, they didn't back it up, but I mean, it's I love that there is that just like that bravado that everyone's going to carry going into those games, because it's like, yeah, I did fly 500 miles to see my team. And whether they lose or they win, I'm here to support them. And I'll be that way if I'm going to a Saints away game, I will be the exact same way. You will hear me talk shit. I may not like Derek Carr. I may think he is trash sometimes. I will talk him up like he is the king of Bourbon Street when we're going into that dome. We're going anywhere else. He is leading us to a W, whether it was Jameis, whether it was Taysom, whether it was Drew, whether it's Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, Jake Hayner. I do not give a fuck. We are going in there. We are going in to win. So
just on that one, G, I know obviously it was I think it just broke, didn't it, before we came on the pod about Jake Hayner, who's has been diagnosed with a rare strain of skin cancer, which apparently is highly treatable, not as dangerous as a lot of other cancer, but obviously as a Saints pod, we just want to wish him all the best and
definitely
and hope that everything's okay. But yeah, so we're sort of talking about Derek Carr, and so I suppose we ought to go on to obviously we've now hit excuse me, a period of time where everything starts to ramp up towards the season with training camp.
Absolutely.
What are your first?
Got my training camp hat on for this. This is training camp hat.
Helmet in the background where I'm ready to suit up whenever they need me. So
and Dan, you'll be wearing that in your bar even if you're in New Orleans, because ain't no training camp hats happening at training camp, is there, my friend?
No, Dan, this is about as close as any of us are getting to training camp, because that whole scenario is just.
I would have got in if I was in. If I'd gone,
I would have got in.
I've got contact. I suppose a couple of people they sneak me in.
I will. Yeah. Again, you're making friends in all the right places. That's what happens.
If I wasn't there, I'd be going for a beer with Ross down in and John somewhere. So they're just as good. Maybe better. Drinking.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, based on what we've been hearing, honestly, that might be better. No, but Mike, you were saying obviously we're getting into the current iteration of the Saints.
Yeah.
And my thoughts currently are we've spent so much time in the Drew Brees era and going all in, especially at the end of that era.
Yeah.
And we're now finally getting to the point where those all-in pieces, those all-in times are kind of starting to shift away. And so now it's kind of looking at, okay, who's the new guard for this next era of Saints football? Is it going to be Chris Olave? Is it going to be Paulson Adebo? Is it going to be Rashid Shaheed? Is Talise Fuaga going to be, that guy? Like there's a lot of questions and there's not a lot of answers.
Yeah.
Like there are guys who could certainly contribute. I think DB is probably one spot we probably don't need to worry about so much. Once Honey Badger does eventually retire, like what's the plan to fill that spot? Because he is a leader on the team. And DeMario are probably the most two vocal guys. And, linebacker is actually a spot I'm not too worried about right now. Willie Gay has been amazing at camp so far. And the expectation was for him and DeMario to be the guys. And I would love for him to be the DeMario replacement. He steps in as the linebacker next to Werner and they just continue what they've been doing. Obviously a big question mark is D-line. You've got Chase Young with the neck. Cam Jordan is way too long in the tooth to be your primary guy at this point. Brian Bresee is great, but that's really kind of your only young building
interior. Yeah.
Maybe Isaiah Foskey turns things around, and he's certainly been making a good impression in camp so far.
Yeah.
And so defensively, you've been a stalwart for years, even before Dennis Allen took over, since he's been the DC of the team after he took over for Rob Ryan, things have been really good. But how do they continue building that? That's going to obviously be a big question. And then offensively, they've been searching for an identity since Drew left. They tried just plugging in Jameis and Taysom and these other guys into that equation and hoping that they could just go ahead and carry it on. First with Sean and then with Pete Carmichael last year. Now you've got Clint Kubiak, who's bringing in a brand new offense. And obviously there's some growing pains. We've been hearing about it so far in training camp. I certainly always like to play the optimist. I want to believe that they're going to be good until they show me otherwise. I'm not saying they're going to come out and look like the San Francisco 49ers. You got to think that Clint Kubiak was with his dad a lot longer than he was with Kyle Shanahan. There's a lot more influence that's going to come from this much more traditional style offense. The idea and the hope is that he's going to incorporate what made Kyle's offense so special. So that is this motion, that's these gadget plays, and it's putting your guys in position to succeed because, the way that the 49ers set up their offense is they have a lot of good players, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, McCaffrey. But even before McCaffrey, every running back, it seemed like that they slot in there was just killing it. It is a system thing. The Saints, obviously, we got to figure out what's going to happen with Alvin Kamara. Is this kind of the end of that road?
G, what on that one? What do you want to happen with Alvin?
So there is a happy medium.
Yeah,
there is so I brought it up, I think somewhere in the vein of like a 2-year, 22 million, 24 million, and just give him more guarantees because that's really what he's looking for. He wants a little more long-term security. And the thing that I don't understand is that you gave guys like Honey Badger and Demario Davis basically this exact same deal. And Alvin is the only one of these players who's been here since he was drafted. He has literally been here since day one. He was an all-pro as a rookie.
But not only that, obviously, again, the one thing I love about Alvin Kamara, apart from the way that he plays, normally the way that he plays, obviously the last 2 years have been a little bit down for him from a stats point of view.
Yeah.
But still performing. And, we obviously talk about the McCaffrey thing, still not a million miles away from his stats, but considering the 2 years that he's had. But the one thing that I love about Alvin, again, you saw this in his presser this week. The guy's honest, absolutely honest. Spoke this week about how the last 2 years, and he has spoken on it before about the lack of accountability and the fact that things, just even talking about players who were coming in and weren't accepting their own responsibilities. Obviously, he didn't name names. You wouldn't expect him to.
No.
And again, I just think in his own silent way, he's a real leader within that offense, without a shadow of a doubt. And I think you can get a deal done with him, which is, as you were sort of touching on, G, which is not, he sort of said it himself. He doesn't want to be, getting the top market rate. That's not what he's after. And the fact that he actually said that he wanted to finish his career with the Saints, with a new offense, which could be exciting, could not, who knows?
Interesting, the point you made about the leader, though, because Nick Underhill put an article out this week about talking about Dennis Allen trying to find a new identity for the team or rebuild the culture. And essentially what it was they didn't need to do anything on defense because they had DeMario, Honey Badger, Davis,
absolutely
Cam. They'd already had that established baseline and the other players bought into it. Whereas he came in, DA, as head coach. Carmichael wasn't really a leader on offense. You could see that. Drew had gone. A lot of those players had gone. And he actually looked around and said, I don't have a culture on offense because I don't know who my leaders are. And he said all the people who were characters who would be leaders were new to the offense. So Derek Carr, team captain. Jamal Williams has leadership qualities, new to the offense. Foster Moreau is a good leader, but new to the offense. And he said it was basically around trying to identify those players who'd been there a period of time who could be leaders. So Eric McCoy was one that they targeted and said, right, we need you to step up and be a leader and start telling people you're not doing this right. You need to do things better. So it's interesting that they've recognized that offense had no identity or culture to it. And you basically lean on a running back, which is becoming a bit of a mercenary position, although AK is not mercenary, to try and be your leader on offense. Yeah, I just think it was an interesting article, and it wasn't blowing smoke. It was like the offense had nothing there. It just didn't have any character to it.
It's a hard scenario because, just like you guys have talked about, running back is not the position it once was. And, the shelf life of a running back is not even close to what it once was. You had guys playing 10, 12 years. And I mean, they were taking some brutal hits, and, that day is long gone. But I think of a guy like Alvin Kamara. Alvin has never had a full workload. He's never been a guy who's carried the ball, 300 times in a season.
He's not a bell back, is it?
No. And that's
I think it's like the last 2 years. I think that's when he's had his most carries, which yet again, and with behind the O line that we've had, and also the offensive
just misusing him.
You just that's not him. Why are you doing that?
Yeah, well, and it goes back to what I was talking about before. This was an offense that was designed for Drew Brees. Well, if it's not Drew running this offense, defenses aren't scared of the pass like they used to be. And so they can creep up. They can, take advantage of being in the box and saying, Alvin is a player that will, hurt us if we allow him to. And so they'll say, Derek Carr beat me. And, there's been some cases where he absolutely can, and then a lot of cases where he doesn't. I do think that this version of Derek Carr could win like a division title, take the Saints to the playoffs. And once you're in the playoffs, it's anybody's game. We saw Eli Manning go on an absolute heater twice and win a Super Bowl. And Eli Manning was never really a great regular season quarterback. He had one season where he was really that guy. And, same thing with like Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was never the guy, but you get to the playoffs, everything else is on the table. And so I do think that Derek is a mid to low mid QB. Like, I don't think there's really any debating that. Is he the 32nd worst QB in the league? Absolutely not. And I think you do have to simplify the system. It's 1-2 read, something, of that nature. And that's what Kubiak's system is supposed to be doing. Yeah. There's going to be growing pains. Like this offense, obviously we'll see more in preseason. I'm excited to see him, we're seeing more coaches that are going to utilize preseason for their starters because we're seeing so many offenses come out really terribly to start the season. And that's because there's limited practice time. There is just limited, means for them to get better during the summer. That's why you're seeing so many of these guys work out separately from the team because they can get more time in. They can do all these things that are going to help the team be better. So, I absolutely agree. I think Alvin is easily one of my favorite all-time players for the Saints. This is an Atlanta kid who has ingrained himself in New Orleans culture. That alone should, speak volumes. And he's just been a stalwart of this offense. And I do hope he ends up retiring as a Saint. I think there's a middle ground. I think both sides are kind of mad at each other right now. So, maybe it's a situation where they'll come back later in the year and retouch on it and get things figured out. Do I think that he's going to be traded? I would say no. And I honestly think it's mostly out of necessity, simply just because who else are you going to play? Jamal Williams. Yeah. I'm a lot higher on Jamal Williams than a lot of people are. I think last year was just
I think it was Carmichael last year. Carmichael didn't have to use him. Yeah.
There's a lot of things going wrong last year. That being said, he's not playing behind the line that he was playing in Detroit. So that is certainly something to mention. But I think he's better than what he showed. And so Jamal Williams, Kendra Miller just can't stay healthy. Like we've seen glimpses. You see when he does get extended touches, there is absolutely a NFL level running back. Dan, I know it probably hurts your heart to know that could have been Tajay Spears, and
don't.
But no,
is that Tajay with no knee, who I think was in virtually every game last year for the Titans.
Yeah, and is now their starting running back. Yes.
Yeah, again, G, on that one, because what are your thoughts on the fact that, and if I'm honest, I thought it was great on DA's part where he actually was that scathing about him in the press conference. I think that's good, because what we've heard, obviously, sort of since, and obviously a little bit previous to that, he's not the most professional. He's not looking after himself in the way that a professional athlete should be.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on DA in that? Because, as I said, genuinely, I thought, yeah, good on you, because you're calling someone out who maybe not be behaving in the way they ought to as a professional athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a firm believer your coach has to be a little bit of an asshole in order to respect
Sean Payton.
Players. Sean Payton is a perfect example.
King of the arseholes. Yeah.
And he built a career off of it. But he learned it from Parcells, and obviously Bill Belichick learned it from Parcells as well. DA's got a tiny bit of it, and you see it in instances just like this. Like, again, this is holding players accountable, which is, again, something Alvin talked about, like they hadn't been doing. You're going to have players that your coach is going to favor. And of course, in our case, that's DA is going to favor Derek Carr because he brought him here. He brought him here to lead this next era of the Saints. And, it's hard to say whether, that accountability is going to change. I certainly hope it does. And I think having a new voice in the room, Clint, will potentially go ahead and help with that. But I'll say this. I think that DA is a great defensive coordinator. I just don't know that, I don't know if he is enough of an asshole to be, at least in the way that we would need him to be like a great head coach. Because you want your players to like you. Because if your players don't like you, you get situations like, Brian Flores was in Minnesota, and your whole roster falls apart at that point. So or not in Minnesota, in Miami.
Miami.
And so that's just not a key to success. But I think DA is leaned too hard into the other side. He wants to be too friendly. It's kind of like parenting. Like you want to be friends with your kids, but you're their parent first. And so, I think he wants to be too friendly. I think he wants to be liked as opposed to respected. And so that's where my line kind of goes with him. But I think he has it in him to want that respect and to request that respect, but it's got to be a constant thing. Like you can't be a buddy, like when it's applicable and then just decide to be an asshole. Sean did such a good job of balancing this, and it wasn't always like that. Sean's hubris got in the way of him doing a lot of stuff. I mean, look at his staff choices, all those kinds of things. And I think the same
wide
thing.
Receiver room.
Yeah. DA thinks that he is kind of the same way. DA has tried to address things. I think when they've been an issue, they just haven't worked. So defensive line kind of is one of those examples. Like they have tried. I have to give them credit. They have tried to make it better. Whether it works or not, obviously that remains to be seen. But they go out, they push Carl Granderson into a starting role, and he is a starting level end now. It's just, where was this during the Marcus Davenport years when we needed a running mate for Cam, but now Granderson doesn't have a running mate, so it's just like, it's frustrating, but at the same time, this is just kind of how it goes. So I do like the accountability from the coach. I want to see more of it. I want to see him, he say, I need that respect. And, a lot of people are going to say that he doesn't deserve it. And I mean, they're right. Like what has he done exactly to say that, DA deserves his respect? He has a terrible head record as a head coach, as the Saints head coach. Obviously, it's, you know, basically even, but you want to see more out of them, and I think that you know, he could potentially get that out of these guys. He just has to do it.
So you're saying we're going to win the Super Bowl?
I'm saying if they made it to the playoffs, I will be the first one buying my ticket. So
he's like, this might be lost on you a bit, G, but I think Michael definitely get it. DA and this staff, when it comes to defensive backs, is like Arsene Wenger was to attacking midfielders. They just continue to breed and bring in excellent DBs, but it's just other parts of the defense just aren't. They've just been. I think part of it is unlucky because they've brought in some of these like Peyton Turner, Marcus Davenport. They're explosive players who their metrics and things say that they should be absolute game wreckers, but they just can't stay on the field. And it's the same thing like with Kendra Miller. You just got to call them out now, I think, and just say, if you're not on the field, you're no good to me. Like who was it, Lombardi or Parcells, who said the biggest attribute for a player is to be healthy?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's
words to that effect. Yeah. I'm paraphrasing, but I think if we can be this season the 2015 Denver Broncos, because I'm drawing an analogy there because Peyton Turner wasn't great that year, but they had a good defense. They had a Kubiak in charge. I think they'll be all right. Oh, was Kubiak there? Kubiak was there, right? No.
Yeah.
Was he offensive coordinator or head coach? Head coach.
He was head coach in that time. Yeah.
He took over from So if we could be there over
after
Fox, not Fox.
It might have been Fox actually, or Fox either was before or after.
Because Fox traded away Jay Cutler, didn't he? And then they brought in Peyton Manning. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, if it could be 2015 Broncos, I'll be happy with that.
But you're sort of touching on it yet again. If you look at the defense last year, and you look at what we had at defensive end, apart from Granderson, nothing else is really happening. The defense still stood up, which in itself I think is something that we should credit DA with. Now, obviously we know, Chase Young, hugely talented. In fact, not highly talented, hugely talented. Now, if you can get him coming in and getting 8.5, I mean, I'd be happy with 7.5 sacks, I think, from him, or 8.5 or 9.5, or even 10.
Just like consistent.
Exactly. And you've got Granderson who might get another 8.5. And if Cam, obviously we don't know about Cam. We know he's
get 4 or 5.
Exactly. We know yet last year we don't know where he is as far as him being an effective defensive end anymore is, but he had big injury issues last year. Dan, you're right. If you can get 4.5, 5 sacks from him,
and then 4 or 5 out of Brazil,
exactly, it makes things look a little bit healthier from that. But also, last year we didn't have that, and the defense stood up, which obviously you've got to give DA. I think even if you don't particularly like him, you've got to compliment him on that. And all you can hope, and yet again, from my point of view, after 16 years or whatever it is, we've now got a new offensive mind in the building who is looking at the QB he's got and thinking, how can I make him more effective with the deficiencies that he's got? My slight concern about that is, we touched on it there, is about our running back situation. That worries me a lot. But we don't know.
Yeah, we're gonna find out, right? Because we're gonna see them in training camp. We're gonna see additional stuff in the preseason games, and someone surprising is gonna get cut as well. Like, because it always happens with these players when we're getting closer to the end of training camp and we move into the regular season. There's gonna be players that come available that we're gonna say, oh man, I really want them to sign this person. Really, because maybe the Saints could utilize that.
Tony Jones.
Hey, I got 2 touchdowns in one game last year. So.
Yeah, I know. I'm joking.
But no, I do think that DA has built a defense kind of in the inverse of what most traditional defensive coordinators do. Most coordinators are, let's get a superstar defensive end, and then we can build our defense around that. And DA said, no, we're going to build our defense around the back end. And it's worked. It's definitely one way to go ahead and do it, and it's a different way, but it works. So I hope that, like, obviously we continue to see the rise of some of these other, Jordan Howden, would love to see him go ahead and improve this year. He's going to be starting.
Dan's boy.
So Jordan Howden, I'm really excited to see Kool-Aid in action. I'm excited to see what, potentially happens with Alante. There's a lot of cornerbacks going down with injuries around the NFL that are ready in training camp. So I would not be surprised whatsoever if we start to see some teams reaching out about some of the Saints corners. Adebo's in the final year of his deal, so that's also something to potentially watch out for. But those are, something that you have to be wary of. But Kool-Aid is, probably the untouchable one here at this point. And I'm excited to see this team. I think that they are going to be more fun to watch this year, which I think is the most important thing. So
I see Mike Triplett this week or last week said that he thinks they've got the strongest cornerback room in the league.
I think that's at least in the conversation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then I saw another thing. I think Brandon from NOF said he wrote up about training camp this week, and he said Cordell McKinstry is a force, and he's aggressive.
They were literally talking about it in this week's episode of Hard Knocks with the Giants. They had him rated very highly and wanted to take him at the very beginning of the second round. But
he was originally like top QB off the top cornerback off the board, like mid-season.
Yeah, he had an injury, didn't he?
Projections. Yeah, he had the foot injury or the leg injury.
Yeah,
but he was originally, because I remember saying I want him just because what a name, Kool-Aid. And when I was a kid, I was in an advert for Kool-Aid, 2 adverts for Kool-Aid.
So I mean, it's a match made in
True
heaven.
Story.
Honestly, like he's going to fit in really well. I think that it made sense to draft him, just the value, and you don't know what the future of Marshawn Lattimore and Adebo is going to be. One of those guys is going to be on the team. Like we do know that for sure. And I think what'll end up happening is they'll extend Adebo, and Marshawn is probably on more limited time. But this team is also going through a period where in 2 years they're going to have $100 million in cap. So it's, now is the time to kind of sign some of those guys if you think that, they're worth that.
I think the league as well is moving to a model which more often than not says, you need to trade these players at the height of their value and just draft better. Like the running back model, just every year draft a running back in the 3rd or 4th round and then let one go. Yeah. I think you're going to see that with cornerbacks a lot more because the price they demand is so high. And they just want to spend it on their quarterbacks, don't they, teams? So they need to free up that cash somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think
so. Super Bowl. We're fucking agreed. Super Bowl.
I'm absolutely behind that, Dan. Did that reluctance speak everything you need to know? No.
Yes.
Oh, mate. Let me tell you. Let me tell you a story.
Let me tell you a story.
Let me tell you a story. So I used to have and this is, I suppose this has had an impact on me. So I used to have a season ticket at Tottenham.
Okay.
And the guy, and every time we'd go to, shut up, you old fuck. Right? Every time we go to a game, like we'd say that people would say to the guy, old boys who sat in front of me, do you think we're going to win today? And they go, yeah. And we'd come up against like the best teams in the league, your Arsenals, your Man Cities, your Man Uniteds, when they was at their pomp. So do you think we're going to win today? And they go, yeah. And they go, but you always say we're going to win. You go, well, why the fuck would I come if I thought we was going to lose?
Yeah.
And it stuck me. It's like, yeah, but if I thought we was going to lose and be shit, why the fuck am I watching the game? Do you know what I mean? So you've got to come into it thinking we're going to win because otherwise, what's the fucking point?
Exactly.
Is that why you don't go anymore, Dan?
yeah, that is why I don't go to Tottenham anymore. Whereas the Saints, I go to New Orleans twice a year.
Yeah. No, hey, look, the bottom line, it's this thing about it is that, none of us know. None of us know what it's going to look like. New offensive coach. We don't know what our O line's like. We don't know what our D line's like. We know our cornerbacks are good. We've got one standout wide receiver. If you look at it from that point of view, it's like, oh shit, maybe things aren't going to be absolutely great. but you never know, and that's the beauty of sport is hope. It's hope. That's all it is.
It's always
hope.
a surprise team. It's always a team that no one saw coming.
Exactly,
Go,
but then
G
G touched on it earlier. You win your division. You never know, and I think that's
just
exactly where exactly. Just give yourself the opportunity. That's literally it. Let's give yourself the opportunity. Right. We're gonna wind it down now, G. But we've got to ask you a couple of things. One is right. Favorite beer or drink when you go to the city?
Ooh, I gotta go with the mango cart.
My
first time trying it when I was in town this last time. I'm not a big drinker, but that is absolutely the go-to.
All right. Next one, Dan. Do you want to say it? What do you reckon it is?
Food.
Yay! Food.
Ooh,
what's your favorite food when you go over there?
Man, that's tough. I love gumbo. A good gumbo is just it's one of like the top 5 best things you could ever eat. So Jack Rose has a great duck and sausage gumbo, and it is
I had that. That is good.
Absolutely to die for. I mean, you can't go wrong with that dog and getting. I pulled a Dan and got the etouffee alligator sausage. Just
fucking
awesome.
go-to. I've convinced Steele he's going to try that when we go. I said, you got to try etouffee. He's like, what's in it? I said, don't worry, just try it. It's fine.
Yeah, like, I don't even know what's in it, but it's delicious.
I've had the same on it. It's absolutely delicious, but I don't know if you remember the last time that Dan had that etouffee. Do you remember, Dan? Do you remember when he had that one, mate?
Yes, because I was shit-faced. We went to one on Frenchman, which is nowhere near as good as one on Magazine.
Yeah, and we had to put Dan in a taxi to make sure he was all right going home. That's all I'm saying.
No, I got in a taxi because the toilets weren't working in that bar we went to, and I really needed a wee. And I know you get arrested for public urination in New Orleans, so I wasn't trying it.
Yeah, it is. Okay. We can't have our man getting arrested on foreign soil.
No. Not if they get the secret files. I'll be done.
I gotta say gumbo is gotta be number one though. I mean, and anybody who's had a legitimate New Orleans gumbo, whether it be homemade, whether it be restaurant quality, like it's and you go to a bunch of like New Orleans based like events in the UK, and imitation is a very sincere form of flattery, but it doesn't necessarily hold a candle to the real thing.
Swiftly moving on.
No. The only place I've had gumbo which comes anywhere close or is as good as what I've had in New Orleans is at Decatur. Our friends Tom and Callum at Decatur, because they do a great gumbo, but they're independent. You go to anywhere else, like it's just shit.
Yeah,
probably doesn't even have like Trinity in it or anything.
But then Tom,
before I move on,
sorry, I was going to say Tom's also. He's lived in the state. He knows exactly what it should be.
Yeah.
Before I move on, I've got a someone when we was in a bar in New Orleans gave us a cheat recipe for doing a roux in the oven rather than stirring it. I'll send it to you. I haven't tried it, but it sounded like it was like less hassle if you're on a time frame. You can't do anything.
Let's give it a try.
Yeah, see what happens.
All right, so
don't blame me if it goes wrong though.
Favorite current player, G.
Oh man, that is tough. No,
it's not. Come on, tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
I'm gonna go one offense, one defense. I'm gonna say I love Rashid Shaheed. He's just electric every time he touches the ball. Played at Weber State, which is actually here in Utah, and so absolutely, I think that he has. I think if you put him in like a Kansas City offense, I think he would be like an all-pro level wide receiver. Yeah. I think he's that.
He's got untapped potential, hasn't he? Yeah. He really has. If you get him in the right offense, he could do real bits.
I think he could be.
Sorry,
go ahead, Dad. I was just going to say, I think he could be great value Tyreek Hill. Like, I think that is how big of an impact he could have in the right system.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Pete Carmichael just used him on one play and didn't really utilize him the way he could have.
Yeah.
Like, he tended to just use him on the same sort of route all the time. And I think he's got more to his game than that, a lot more to his game than that.
Yeah. So I'll say that, and then I'll say Paulson Adebo. I love Adebo's resilience. Love him. Yeah. I love the fact that he has he had a not awesome year 2 and just rebounded into, I mean, he's a Pro Bowl level player. I think that, I think he's got a bit of like Jalen Johnson in him, the cornerback from the Bears. And I think that if he has another year like he had last year, he's going to get paid like Jalen Johnson just did, 4 years, 74 mil, something like that. But yeah, absolutely love Adebo.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people have, obviously you were saying about the dip in year 2, which he did have, but I think a lot of people forget that he was literally the cornerback 1 for the Saints for the majority of last season and didn't.
And he was a lockdown as well.
Yeah, it was
incredible. And they're obviously, and again, it's you can argue this for and against, but everyone's talking about his next contract, would it be a CB1 anywhere else? He was a CB1 for us last year and didn't disappoint at all. So I think even if you look at I love Lat, I absolutely love Sean, but the bottom line is, you talked about it earlier, Dan, and I'm not saying it's his fault, but availability has been a problem.
Gotta stay healthy.
What we're paying him is a little bit of a problem, I think. And I love him, so I'm genuinely hope he comes back this year, and it gives us a real dilemma at the end of next year about what we do with that position, because obviously with Kool-Aid coming in. Even Alonte, who I know gets a load of shit, but the guy's playing a position that's brand new to him. Absolutely brand new to him. Yeah. And literally, I think it was last year at training camp, it was about 2 weeks before the season started where they said, we might look at you in this position. That's not fair on anyone.
Yeah.
So that's it. So, fair play. I like those choices. G, absolutely like them. Right. So a caveat, apart from Drew Brees, your favorite all-time player?
Saints or just
Saints? Yeah, okay. Saints.
Marcus Colston, bar none.
Quiet Storm?
Yeah. A guy who was a 7th round pick ended up becoming the best receiver the Saints had ever had until Michael Thomas. Held every record, and health permitting, Chris Olave should break that receiving record like pretty easily. And that again, that's also, can the Saints retain him? Receivers are getting very, very expensive. So that's certainly something to think about. But no, Marcus Colston was just come in, do your job, was never a diva about anything, literally just a baller. It was an absolute privilege to get to watch his entire career.
Brilliant. Just a quick one on that one where you talk about Olave. Are you, and this is not me talking, this is obviously, Saints, Twitter and everything else. Are you convinced that Olave is a number 1?
Yes, without question. I think that there is a Stephon Diggs, Jetta's ceiling in there. And I wish he was a little bit thicker in the frame. That is absolutely something to be concerned about, because he takes hits. I just hold my breath every time. And part of those is like throwing bad balls. But another part of, you're going to take hits as a receiver. Like, that's just part of the game. And I've seen him make incredibly spectacular catches that like no other player's making in the game. And he is a wide receiver 1. I think he'd be a wide receiver 1 on every team except for like 5 or 6. I think that he's incredible. Anybody who says otherwise is wrong. So
I'm with you. I think his playing ability gets downplayed. His route running. I'm with you on that. But the thing is, each year that he's coming, he's bulked up a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, and actually looking at him this year, you can obviously see the difference in his size. But I'm with you. I think, yeah, you're right. I know there are people who would absolutely disagree. Some of our friends who we know on other podcasts.
No shade, Max and Corey.
Yeah, but no, I agree with you. I agree with you, G. I think there are probably 5, 6, 7 teams where he may not be the number one, but on the others he would be. And but also you've got to treat him as a number one.
Yeah,
the last 2 years coming in, Michael Thomas is like almost that quasi number one. Like, am I number one, or is he?
Yeah,
now he's the number one. It's like, you're the number one, mate. Go and fucking earn it.
I'm going to do this with a wink. Mike Thomas was number one in the injury room.
All right. And maybe on that note,
we'll put some of our friends up, but I'm only doing it teasing, so it's fine.
All right. I think, G, we've kept you long enough, mate. And thank you so much for joining us. It was great. I mean, great to hear about the success you had with the Chocobo podcast and the guys. Obviously, friends of ours, all three of you. We couldn't be prouder of you. It's like, I'm obviously a lot older, so I feel like I've got a few sons who are doing a real good thing in life.
Hey,
whenever they talk about a game that I know, I'm like, Leo, I'm like, I know that one.
Yeah.
Whenever they talk about a game, I don't know it. 25 years ago, I would have went, I know
lighting right now. But no, thank you guys for having me. It was an absolute privilege. I obviously love getting to talk with you guys. I love any chance we get to have to interact even more than we do. So you guys are two of my close friends. I truly just enjoy being a part of your lives, and I love being a part of this. So thank you guys for having me. It's wonderful.
And G, I assume I'm seeing you in November.
Fucking hell, man.
G,
Mike, I will be there.
November.
I will be there.
See you there, Dan. You're going to be in there? Oh no, you're not, are you, mate? You're going.
No, but I might be seeing G in a couple of weeks.
I said I might see him a lot sooner. Actually.
Oh, maybe a lot sooner. So because I've got my road trip. Mike, before we go off, I just wanted to do a shout out to our friend Maggie, who sorted out multiple UK Saints fans with this beautiful little towel.
But also, can I also shout out Johnny and CK, who sorted me out one because every other one went. So you thought you were going to fucking bitch at me with that, didn't you, Dan?
No, I did not.
No, you didn't.
No, I did not. I just wanted to.
I got one as well.
Boo, boo, boo.
Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, CK.
I'm thanking Maggie because she started it off.
No, you're absolutely
she sent me
right.
out to multiple UK fans.
She did.
Also,
that's incredible.
Great work.
Shout out Bijan, who stayed with me for a couple of days, who's a part of the Saints Block Party community, and he gave me this beautiful Pelicans decanter bottle, which
is lovely.
It's really nice. It's full of Southern comfort at the moment. he said to me, you can put wine in it. I was like, there's spirits again in that, mate.
No way.
So, but shout out to both of those people because both part of incredible communities, different communities, but doing great stuff.
All part of the Saints community.
For the fandom. But yeah, G, wonderful friend you are. Really, really great friend. I look forward to coming on to talk about Gorilla Tag one day with you on Chocobo. I'll translate for Dylan, who had an absolute meltdown. He had an absolute meltdown today because they said they were going to drop the new release at 6 o'clock and they didn't, and he lost his shit. I had to walk him off the edge. It wasn't great, but independent game developers, they're not bound by the same time frames as EA Sports.
Gee, I can't wait to come on and talk about Daley Thompson's decathlon on the pod.
I can't wait to have you on.
Dad'll get that, but nobody else will.
I don't know what the US version would have been. Ben Johnson's decathlon? I don't know.
Oh, no, I don't think so. Anyway, it was a wonderful game back in the 80s. So that's all I'm going to say.
You used to use Coke lids to do the buttons, didn't you, to make it go quicker?
Just
think like
on that note,
2020.
I think we
Yeah,
definitely will
okay,
say
we
goodbye.
fucking-
It looks like getting a bit rare on screen. Thanks, everyone. And everyone go and follow G on Twitter and also Chocobo Chasers on Twitter. That'd be wonderful.
And
They do
Erik
great
and Dash
work.
for good measure while you're there.
Yeah,
Follow
absolutely.
the three of them. Great content. We out.
We're out.